Hi, Ahmet. First of all, I think for future, you should try to use a different type of paper, I guess, because when you take a picture of it, the visual is really bad. I guess it's shined with the flash or something. Anyway, I can see that you actually caught up with a nice opportunity of somehow bringing together the double A's and the G. So I can see that there's an option. I mean, there's a kind of an idea there, but right now these elements they don't really look like they're fit together. There's a huge empty space between them, and they're very thin. But it seems like this could be done really well. I mean, first of all, you have to make sure that these things are parallel to each other, like this one, this one. Then how closer can they get? For example, let me get this. Try to. It's actually quite easy if you work with thicker kind of board marks. So let's have this A like that. I don't even think we need to get them down like that, but let's start to see like this, for example. Would it become too much of an M, maybe? And then you have the same kind of angle. Okay, I didn't manage to do it at all. So, but this is kind of what you want to get. So the problem is you have a huge emptiness here. Is it what you try to do by getting them together? So what if I do like you did, do this? It's just these things are a bit too non-necessary. So if they actually fit better together, it's even better. So if I don't really care about whether I read it perfectly as A, as a G, but it's kind of should be coming from there. Maybe you should be erasing it from here, I don't know. Could be, but I'm not sure. So this is also interesting, the one you have at the bottom. This one. I wouldn't recommend using these kind of gears. It kind of gives too much of an engineering kind of a feel. I mean, I couldn't really do it here. I couldn't really solve it here, but there's an idea there that could be solved. Just don't. You're right now. It just looks too much like a heavy metal music band's, I mean, sign or something. So these details, I'm not sure that they're really necessary. But this in itself is looking really nice. I just want to see the alignments. I mean, like the alignment here. It's too thin. I guess you definitely need to have a larger opening there. So by playing with such things, I think we can figure it out here. This seems too rounded and very different, but this is also, I mean, it has the potential. So why do you really, I don't think you need that kind of strike between the A and the G. You could just play with the idea that it fits in a perfect kind of square, actually. So you could even have a square outside. Let's try to have it. What if I place a square, and it can actually be quite thick if you like, or much thicker. So I wouldn't really recommend having an outline, but actually kind of doing it like this. So once you have this, let me draw with white on it, maybe. Sorry. So yeah, this is the idea, right? So this is right now the way I kind of drew it is very thin. For it to be a logo, again, let me go to let's say 6 or 7 point to give you a better sense, but I think it should be something like that, the thickness. Yeah, so now I kind of exaggerated to give you a sense of how thick I would like to see it, but that can actually become a really nice logo if you play with it. The detail that needs to be solved, of course, there are those things. So when you have the A go down, is it going to be, oops, sorry, let me make it thicker. Is it going to be flat like that? Is this going to be edgy like this, or is this going to come up like that and then go in like this? All these details need to be solved. Is it going to be flat like that, or do you want to make it maybe rounded? So a lot of options, even for the square itself. I mean, it can be rounded. How much rounded is of course another option, what type of color. So you have something that's going on nicely here. I wouldn't go with any of them. This, like I said, could be a potential. This, I can see that it can happen, but it feels like it needs too much work. I don't think I would focus on them. These have become 46, by the way. If you're going to play with kind of the idea of the eyes or something, again, you have to keep working on it. So they're not there yet, but so usually my recommendation is, since you don't have a lot of time to work on it, you shouldn't keep working on many. So I would recommend to keep working on only this one, forgetting the other ones. But if your heart is set on another one, that it's your choice. Good luck. Serdar. So let's get closer. So there's a really interesting idea there, I think. I'm not really going to go with any of these. They are looking like other stuff, I think, and they're kind of focusing too much on A. But as far as I know, you're using Serdar, right, as your main name. So here is also something here, and here something interesting. This looks visual, this one and this one, so they're the same. They're visually very interesting, so it could work. But the S has been lost here, and we mainly see the A. But here, especially this one, so maybe I'll come back to it later. But that one really looks interesting. So, but let me first look at some, not these ones either. So these, again, they look like an existing logo. I can't remember what it is, but I think that has more potential, or this one. So you could play with them. I think instead of putting them that flat, this actually looks so much more interesting. But here's the kind of a question I had when looking at it. I wondered if the S could have been a bit curvy like that, to have a better sense of what that letter actually is. So would that work? I think so. Okay, this is a badly drawn example, but I think it could. Seems like it could. So when you're dealing with the A, just like we did in the other, let me show it again. So just like kind of what you did here, you don't have to show me both legs of the A, so it can just maybe come up to here, do this. So it needs to be checked, of course, or if it becomes an F, or do I still read the A? Again, so every time you are kind of not sure what is being read, is it that really important? Because you're actually just having a kind of an emblem here. So if we can read, wonderful. If we cannot, so what about? So what could we fix it maybe? I need to go a bit down, right, for it to be read as A maybe. So if I go down, it's kind of it's going to clash with the S. So maybe this one goes over. The S kind of jumps in after a while, perhaps. Maybe those kind of things could be played. So if you are going to keep within these limits for the C. So is it going to be curvy all the way through, or kind of like here, maybe the bottom is going to be straight, the upper part is going to be things. So if I have a edge here, like a corner, I could have another corner somewhere out here perhaps, or so kind of a repetition of it. There is something going on here. It can be solved. It doesn't look like it's going to be solved. It's going to be very difficult to solve. So you can work with this. You can see whether you can put different colors for those different parts. But also, like I said, I really like this one visually, but the S is lost, so I wouldn't focus on it. Again, the S is the problem here. It's getting lost. So for me to be able to read S, maybe I need a bit of an angle. So if you're, instead of being flat like that, you have such an angle, and then let's see. So maybe you should need to put that kind of an A. So I actually did something full different, so maybe focus on this one. So to make this one better, what you first of all need is I think, a perfect circle. Okay, oops, let me make it smaller. So a perfect circle with quite a thick thing. So then on it you should start to draw. So the A is going to come up here, maybe, so S is going to take up the larger location part of it. So it's a kind of a yin-yang thing, it seems like. Okay, of course the C, actually we're not reading the C, but so does it have to float like that, or could it be part of this thing? So let me paint this part white. Oh. Okay, hiç şey olmaması çok komik olmuş tabii şunun içinde. Sorry. Just a moment. So let me get a color scheme just to paint it. So I'm going to erase maybe this part. Ay şaka gibi ya. Beyaz alamadım, şu olmam. Şuradan alsam olacaktı. Okay, so maybe you have to erase this only and this. So this really is going to, can look very professional and finished. Whether the C, of course the C is reverted, so does it create a problem? Yes, it does. Is it really important? Maybe not that much, but maybe like the one I drew before. Maybe you can put a C here, a smaller one. So a lot of questions. You have really nice options. You can pick one and just keep going with a single one. Good luck. So Aya, let's see. I can see you trying with the handwritings the T, but when you write it like that, this becomes a C. The T has to be, it can either go down like that or it can be separate, but this you mainly, each one that you tried with this one, you have a C instead of a T, so just be careful about it. But I like the idea that it can connect, so the way certain things that you have tried are really looking interesting. I especially found that one very near to be finished. So when you work on such a thing, what you need to do, what you need to achieve is, this perfect alignment. So right now, I mean, it either has to come up really well so that the A can go on from there and then go down so that it actually still fits on the same base. Here as well, so if you are going to create the T, so make sure that this kind of goes like a tangent with the T part. So you have to work really nicely with this, but it's looking very, very interesting. So that would be a really great emblem. But another thing, of course, right now I think it's still a bit too thin. These kind of things could actually work really well with quite a thicker thing, and it would usually be more strong. So let's try it like that. See, now I kind of lost your small detail there trying to paint it, but I think you can manage it on your own. I'm just trying to get you a sense of how thick it can be. Apart from that, well, like I said, these are not working that great. You start to get, Da Vinci's Vitruvian kind of man here. Now, among all of them, these are becoming like too boring, like weird, iconic kind of ritual kind of shapes from a different alphabet or something. But I found this one very interesting. So this is also something very different. This is kind of a more elegant, a bit more classical kind of a thing. This is more childlike, fun, entertaining. So whichever one you want is your own choice. But there's a really nice idea here. What you need to do definitely is to better open up different parts. So I need an opening here, and then so once you have opened this up, this needs to connect like that. Okay, so with the head probably needs to connect to here. I will still be able to read the A, I think. No, and there are so many unnecessary curves here. I think it just needs to be cleaner. So what if this one kind of connects? Will I still be able to read? Probably not. So if this is going to stand as a separate thing, so whenever I have that, I just want to leave an empty space around. That's the problem. So it needs to be looking like this. will it still work when I do that thing? So this probably will need to be thinner to kind of fit with it. So it needs more work. So I think this is so much closer to being finished, but well, your own identity. You decide. Good luck. Aylin, thank you. I think you did work really nice. It's nice to see the progression, and it's nice to see all those very different ideas. There are many things that I enjoyed here. So these are kind of looking very boring, but here you are starting to arrive at something that's very interesting. I like when something goes over and then another thing goes underneath. Let me just get a bit thicker to paint better. So, oops, this is maybe a bit too thick. But I think, okay, it's not a problem that it's too thick. It kind of gives you a sense of how thick I wish you would work with this one. So let me switch to white to kind of erase the spaces between. I didn't switch to white, sorry. Just a moment. So how was it? I forgot how it was. It was going like that, I guess, right? So that's how thick I think this needs to be. And of course the sides right now too long, they kind of need to feel the same. This also can actually become much shorter. The thicker it gets, the stronger it looks. Kind of a parallel lines, but here's what to think. I mean, you can maybe have very straight edges and corners here. Okay, I wonder if we can even erase those very long legs. I'm trying to make it fit more unified as much as possible. So maybe I have these edges and corners, but here I have maybe a rounded thing. Maybe that's what you will play with. So a really nice idea there to play with. It has lost the idea of the K though when I did this. Well, maybe you'll be playing with the angle of that thing to make it look like a K. Could be. This has become something very different, I think. It has no relationship to the A and the K. At least I have lost it. So, but it looks really nice in terms of an emblem. What could happen to it, I wonder. Oops, sorry, this is too thick. So could it have been a bit more like that? Maybe. Because right now it's starting to look too much like a small cookie or something. So more of an A feel, and this rounded thing also gives the sense of the, the eye of the A. So that can actually really be wonderful. Again, so the thicknesses they really affect everything. So I'm drawing with a calligraphic pen, so it gets thinner and larger. That might be an idea that can be thick all the way through. The thing to work in terms of like small details is how, for example, this thing is going to end, because there is a kind of a V underneath. Is it gonna come and end like that? Is it going to be very different? Is it going to be more rounded? So you figure that out. Let me go here. Very interesting ending. I think at the end of every page you are reaching something that's really interesting. When I was looking at it, I was wondering whether you could be doing something that, it also kind of goes like that maybe. I wonder if it could have more of a symmetry to it, because I have worked with them in a very straight fashion connecting them, but couldn't those curves also be connected? Maybe too much? Yeah. Maybe will this one come like all the way here, and something like that could also work. Again, this is too thin. This is just me also trying out. You have to work with them in such thicknesses. Okay, the idea of the moon is interesting, but it starts to look like some other stuff, I think, like boomerangs or something. But, I mean, I'm not saying no. I think these are all kind of similar in terms of how we're constructing, and they are all looking nice. Here, I think this is just too much behind. Maybe it can actually cross over here. Or maybe this last page is not that necessary. So all of these options I'm okay with. This maybe a bit less. This one, or maybe this one a bit more. Pick just one and keep working on it. Good luck, Aylin, and thank you for the work. Bahar. Now, the one that when I looked at it, I enjoyed the most was this one. I think it's so funny and so nice. If this is a kind of a thing that you want to use, because it's really, you can see a character there. So this is a really different approach than what you have here or here. Very two different identities. So whoever you are, you have to decide, of course, but let's say I'm gonna just tell you how to make both of them better. If you're gonna work with it, we need white. So we need white here. We need probably white here. It would be good if we can have it here as well. So maybe a tiny bit here. So this is, you have to first try them all. So could I leave it here or should I also erase there? So I think you need to make the variations of white everywhere. What if I erase this white? What if I erase this white? What if I only have these? What if I erase also these ones but only have those? So you have to look at those different things. I think this is a very valid question, the idea of thickness. I think this thickness is really good, but you're getting very thin. Definitely needs to keep being a bit thicker. Otherwise it will be lost. But you can, of course, play with how open, we call these empty spaces the I of the letter B, for example, in this case. So that part could actually open up and it will actually make it so much more easier for you to get this all to go in. Do we need to have the dots? Of course, for the O we do, but could they be maybe empty space? I mean, really nice emblem. I think that would be very interesting. There's a really interesting play with, I can see all of the letters in it, so that's a opportunity. Of course, it's no longer legible, but we don't really care about it. But I think such a thing works really only when you have it in a frame. It's how it works. And I would also recommend having maybe the frame as black and these things as cutouts in the black. They will be white in this case, but if you place somewhere else, it will be the empty cutouts. So would you be placing this one as well in it? This one? So there's an interesting thing going on. It looks like a Chinese monogram. So my heart goes towards this one, but it's your choice. Good luck. So Begüm, you uploaded 2 JPEG files. I specifically asked and actually wrote detailed notes about how we want that PDF file to be. So you are the only one in the class who still didn't get to submit it correctly in terms of a PDF. Please, for next time, follow the directions and do not submit in a different format. So you have some interesting ways you are combining the B and the K. I enjoyed this one especially. I like the markers gradient effect in this one. This might be something you might want to use or not, but the way you are constructing the elements, it's looking so much better in this little one. These are also interesting. You could maybe play a bit more with us seeing the K perhaps, or maybe not, but that's good. So one thing that, not the other ones, but this one is good, it's actually fitting better. What you need to, of course, solve here is this is very thick, this is very thin. They need to be perfectly in the same size. But it seems like it's going too much in this direction and this direction. So if I were to play with such a thing, I think definitely want to try to minimize it. So would it work if it were much smaller like this? So what if this length is the same as this length? But I would even try to maybe cut up this part as well. So how is the angle? Is it going to be rounded? Is it going to be rounded on both sides? Or is it going to be very flat like that? So you have options, what angle this one is going to be. This is nice, it could work. There is also some interesting things happening here, because I can really see, although here I see a C more, but on the other ones I could see, I can see the B and the K here. So this is kind of very similar. But it gave me the idea that you can see how long you need the B to follow all the way behind. And couldn't we just stop it there, aligned like this? Why not? I mean, I think it could work being just this. I mean, it can get smaller as it comes there. You can play with that idea. So you should be aware of how thick this part is. It should be quite similar to this one. So if you are especially going to start from the thickness and go towards the thinness, there are a lot of things to play with, but there's an interesting thing going on here as well. So this is a bit too complicated maybe. We just see the K, it's hard to read the B. So you have things that are maybe closer to being finished. You can keep moving with them. Good luck. Okay, Benan, let's see. There are some of your, it's really nice, well-presented work. Thank you for that. And there are some of them that I really found very interesting. I'm not going to focus on the first page, if it's all right, because I think I did see some more fun-looking stuff on the other pages. The one problem that you have is that when you use these two things, it looks like you're focusing on B and the Ö. So B, Ö, but you are actually trying to indicate B and E, right? So you need to have a third line. That's the thing, and it actually looks so much more interesting when you have third. So when you have a third, they should be kind of maybe following this line. Here again, this is going to be a third smaller one, so I can see the gradation slowly getting smaller. I really like how you follow through with that angle. Again, like this. This one maybe needs to be a bit thicker. So I enjoyed this one. This is kind of a same thing, a bit thicker, a bit inverted. Good work. You could have a look at it. These are also looking really nice now. I wish you were working a bit more systematically with this one. First of all, let me close this part really well so that these curves actually work nice. Then let me erase this inside, or try to at least make it the same. I need more space, I think, here. So what if they're not rounded on one side, because this side of this line is flat, so maybe they can actually be flat to better fit in with that part. And then maybe you actually, let me draw it in a much thinner line to give you a sense of, I'm going to follow the line of the, the inside curve. So let's draw it like that. Maybe you fit it there. So something like that could work. You might check it out. You might even, instead of doing all of these typical things, just have 3 dots or 3 simpler lines, and lines that are more similar to each other, not so different like you did. Because it's looking so, you have a really nice, fun, cute is the word, I think, emblems here. I really like, and I mean, seems like they fit you, your personality. This is also very interesting, very nice looking. All of these things are really nice, but this one I especially enjoyed. And this curve is really so cute. So you have achieved the idea of cuteness here, I think. But every time you have to play with 3 though, so don't think that this one is enough, because although just in this one maybe 2 could have worked. So maybe I can erase this one. But they need to really follow each other. Right now this one is too thick, these are much smaller. There should be a perfect gradation. So I don't know which one you're going to pick. Look at the one that you like the most and just focus on the single one. So these are not very necessary. There is a very interesting one here as well. I like that one, but still I think pick one of those. But it's your identity. Good luck, Benan. I mean, you have to just be sure that you pick the one that you like the most, because it really will be a loss of time if you keep working on all of them. Thank you. Okay, Berfin. So I did read these parts before, so I'm just going to focus on this part. So my kind of a concern is that if you play too much with the musical key idea, it might give a wrong sense, because you are trying to create an identity for a designer. So okay, the bird is something else. You might pick a bird as a pictogram for yourself. That could work. So but what type of a bird? I mean, these looks very generic. I think you need to find something that's more you. Now, what I really found interesting in terms of a graphical mark on a surface is this thing. I don't know what it shows. I can see the idea of the bee. I can kind of, following the spaces, kind of read the letters. Let's say Berfin, but it kind of also looks like a fish. Do you want it to look like a fish? It can actually be more like a fish, even if you want to. I don't know if it has a meaning to you. if we want to emphasize the B a bit more, maybe a good idea would be to flip it around. Since Berfin, so your name is related with water, so it could work. And these could actually give us ceiling as well. So kind of a cartoonish looking thing. Here it's really too much like bid. So when you say bid, it goes to other stuff. Although I really liked, I mean, okay, yeah, this one especially I liked because it's a really kind of an asymmetrical smiley face. That's very interesting. But if you are going to follow this idea, you definitely need to see how much thickness this thing will handle, because it definitely needs to get thicker, but how much is the question. It can actually, I think, handle quite a lot. You just have to make sure that you don't do these curves. Wow, it's starting to look so much more interesting. So also the curve of that kind of a smile needs to be, I think, rounded a bit. And you have to just be careful that maybe I kind of come from here and connect this one. So I always try to see if I can fit them into a perfect geometry. What if I cut up a piece of this B so that it fits? Maybe what if I rounded it up a little bit? You can try to see such things there. There are some interesting, missing parts of letters that feels like they can create something interesting, but you're just beginning to explore that, so it's not solved. There was some ideas there, but since it's not solved, I'm not focusing on it. So the meaning of your name is so beautiful, and among all of these snowflakes, I really enjoy seeing those. Well, partially this one, but it's less visible. This is more visible. The asymmetrical way you're constructing it. It could have a kind of a typeface so nicely, diagonally to it. But which one are you gonna pick? Snowflake, like again, this one, by the way, it needs to get much thicker. How much thicker? Actually, maybe, yeah. So the moment you get thick, the way they kind of go into each other is going to change. How are you going to exactly end these points? They're going to be like that, or are they going to be straight? So these are all questions that needs to be answered about it. Maybe this has more work to do, but if it's something you're interested, just go ahead and do the work. This could work. This is interesting. And well, the others are I'm not really sure, but I kind of found that those are the most promising ones. Good luck. So, sorry, Beyza, Ezgi. I think there's not really anything very interesting here, but here you are starting to get something good, something really good actually. These are also nicely flowing, but I think the strongness of this one is quite apart. So when you get it down, it's not that interesting. I think it's this going into each other that's good, but I also really liked this one. So this could also be, this is with the B or without the B, but the E is really created in an interesting way. So instead of following it like that, I think it's so much better when you actually cut it up. So I like this one. You don't need to have the full thing. Just think, you can even, forget about that one also. What if you only played with this idea? Let me also see what if it's kind of a less longer, but it's so much more thicker. Let's try to see how thick it can get without becoming awful. So this is what you need to play with. What if I go and do this? How much of a blackness do I need to separate those shapes? So see here, it needs to get a bit further away so that the B and the O doesn't connect. So you have to play with them. I really want them to be, so not that last time, I really want them to have that kind of a strong visual feel. So whether they're going to be getting thinner here and then larger there like that, and this is for this one, or is it going to be the same thickness all the way through, is something that you need to solve. But wonderful opportunity there. A wonderful opportunity here as well, again, about with the thicknesses, of course. Let me this. See how everything changes, because right now I cannot fit it. So if I cannot fit it, I have to figure out ways to give that feeling. Maybe I'm gonna put a tiny bit of it in. So there's still things to be solved. Where exactly is this going to be placed? I mean, there's a really interesting thing here as well. So this one or this one. Mainly these two. Yeah, good luck. So, okay, Cansu. Okay, which one did I kind of liked? Okay, I found that, I mean, this is something very typical. It's not something very new, but it fits your name and it has potential. So you can make it your own with color, with tiny small details, such as, I mean, how is it going to end here exactly? I mean, it could end like that. It could even end like that, so that you also cut up the D. Let's see what else. So it could have these parts like this, but following on, sorry, let me get to white. So following on this line, it could actually cut up and have a D on the inside, something like this. So you will be playing with the colors as well, with the, so not just black gradients, but color gradients, maybe color nuances, shifting from one color. So there's, I think, although it's very simple, maybe, I actually like that this is, I mean, you're lucky enough to have a C and a D, and you were lucky enough to see how they could work together. So it's so very close to being finished. So why not make use of it? If you're going to play with the C and the D like that, you have to be a bit more careful about the geometries, I think, because they kind of offer you a lot of opportunity. I think if you have a nice, I mean, this needs to fit. I mean, this thickness, let's say it's X, this one really needs to be X as well, so that they really look like they're like puzzle pieces that fit together. And so when you do that, it's really weird when I have these, I'm not really sure. I mean, okay, here you see the rounded thing, here you don't have. You can actually play with such things. You can make sure that it's either going to be straight everywhere. If it's going to be rounded, maybe this thing can also be rounded. So, I mean, options to play with. This can also be solved. And this is, I mean, can also be played with in different ways. Good luck. Ceyda. So, you risk writing CK, Calvin Klein. So you should be very careful about it. The moment you kind of start to look like it is problematic, but also this line in between is really disturbing. It's so very unnecessary. It's looking unnecessary. I mean, what if I had, I mean, here only this thing, kind of like Pac-Man, and this thing? Wouldn't that have been enough? You're not showing me this option nowhere. It feels like it would be enough. What you would have to look at, though, is that this overall looks like a much wider thing, and this looks like a bit of a more concentrated, thinner thing. So maybe you need to make sure how wide that circle is, so that they kind of look like a balanced thing together. So let me kind of erase those parts to give you a better sense of how you can achieve the balance. So this in itself could work, you know. It's a very simple thing, but you would, maybe this text, but maybe some other type of text. So with a nice logotype underneath, it can be something easily done and really working nicely. I like how you also play with the idea of the curves. So even within this you can play, but here it's looking very interesting. It doesn't look like, say, CK, so Calvin Klein, but it's not. I mean, I can imagine K, because it's going to be written underneath. I mean, that's how I also kind of read it. So if I want to give the sense of this stroke here, things that could be done, maybe you go and erase a tiny bit of this one. So maybe insert this a bit more in. So why this weird shape, though? Couldn't it have been a perfect circle coming around it and then going? No, maybe not. Or if you, I'm going to have a look at it as a circle, you know, as a field circle. Let me draw it like that. So, and let me maybe draw on it white. How exactly are you going to enter and get out? You can play with how this thing is going to be, how much wider, how much larger. So get a really nice geometry and play with decay alongside. So I did check these ones out. They didn't really seem very interesting to me. So I mean, this could also work, how you kind of combine them together. But if you do this, I think you need to be a bit more careful about how you're consistent with the thicknesses, because right now it's just, I mean, it seems like you're trying to get calligraphic, but it doesn't really look like it either. So you should either get really calligraphic, yeah, like it starts small here and then it's actually becomes thicker and thicker, and then slowly it again becomes maybe thin like this. So that's the calligraphic approach. I'm not sure if you, because it starts to read as E, I think. I mean, you have a few options, like I said, but just work with a bit more balanced elements that fit together much better. And I'm hoping that you're not thinking of use this way. It seems like you have forgotten the color. That's what it kind of make us feel. Even if you want a grayish tone, you can add a tiny bit of color in it, like a drop of course not a drop, you're not doing by hand, but I like I don't know, a tiny bit of yellow, of magenta, of cyan, if you're dealing with CMYK or if you're dealing with RGB. A tiny bit of playing with any type of color, it will give some nuance and break the monotony of the gray here. Good luck. Eda, Lara. So Eda, when you put a lot of typeface and write it down, I mean, these small lines and so on are really not enough to make them yours. So of course you can finish with something you like, but it doesn't really give anyone the sense that you are a designer, that you are able to design your own identity. So I suggest, if you could, you don't have to have an emblem. You can really have just a logo type. But then imagine, like just as an example, if you are dealing with this one, you have to add stuff to it that will make it your own. What if I fill up all the dots, I mean empty spaces? What will it look like? What if I, for example, exaggerate the long parts? Or maybe I, on the contrary, try to erase them as much as possible, so that every letter here kind of looks as similar as it, because see, they have a kind of a similar thing with kind of a lines separating them. What if I do, for example, you have the E, you have the circle, then close to the circle a line, and then the circle, and then again the line actually. So maybe you actually turn this into circle, circle, so circle, 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 and then lines between them, and some of them I also have lines like that. So you could turn it into something like that. Anyway, like I said, even if it's just a logo type, even if you're just going to use something that exists, I mean, for example, someone made this their own. This is not your thing. It comes with the typeface, isn't it? So this is a way someone can make something their own specifically. That's the kind of thing that you need to do for your own stuff. These don't really look very interesting, I'm afraid. So if you are going to play with the idea of the elk, I think these parts are a bit unnecessary. You can cut them up fully and actually write your full name underneath. So Eda, Lara, I forgot the surname, sorry. So then you can actually make somehow pop the E, L, and the K. Pop a tiny bit. Or you can have these things, and again, don't put it on top of it. Don't put any of these ornamentations. I think we just want to see these things. Or you can figure out a way of writing next to it. So maybe you will write Eda, Lara, Kocabik. Was it Kocabik? So anyway. So maybe you will be writing it next to it. And so we can actually read it. But when you put it next to it, these two things seem so very disconnected. So maybe you're just gonna have a single one, and then next to it you're gonna write. Think of it like that. These don't look like they were thought of lots, so you didn't spend too much time working on them. I'm not gonna spend time talking about them. Good luck. Okay, Ege. So I think these are not very new things, but this is very interesting. So the idea of using your own face, of kind of making a doodle out of it, is interesting, but the problem is you're dealing with these tiny thin lines. If you are going to play with this, you can pick a very calligraphic line, so maybe I need to pick something like this. Let me see. And then see how thick you can get, because an emblem needs to be thick if it can. So no, maybe everywhere it needs to be. So what it means to have thicker lines, it also means that you need to have much less line. So you're not actually doing a doodle, or this looks like an automated kind of a drawing, or maybe you did a kind of a filter with Photoshop or something. But you need to give me a, okay, this has a kind of, this doesn't work, just a moment. You get a much thicker thing, so I'm gonna be going like, pardon. So you will be drawing it like that. So when you do something like this, you could actually create something very, very interesting. If you can somehow give it sense that it's you, let me try it out here. Maybe I'm not really trying to fill it up, but work with it as if it were a, you know, a brush. Or maybe it won't really look like you, but it will give a sense of you, kind of, I don't know, it will give a sense, and you can just write your name underneath. So you can maybe play with such a thing. You don't have to do it with digital brush. You can actually maybe even do it with actual hands-on brushes. These look very, like, I don't know, superhero emblems or badges. Some interesting, very interesting ideas there as well. Don't ever try to do this thing to kind of divide them. Now these two are looking nice. This final E is the one that's ruining it, so maybe you can work it out. But I think you here have a really nice face. I wonder if they can get a bit closer, if this G's bottom part can get closer. Right now again, too much apart. But these are really looking nice. Again, thickness, thickness, thickness. Always try to make them, this is gonna be a bit too much, so I'm gonna reduce. So always try to make it as thick as you can, and then you can turn it down. But it actually works so much better when it gets thick, and it's true every time. And this one doesn't have to fit perfectly here. It might actually work so much better if it kind of follows through from this E and maybe makes a larger thing. So how to connect it with the G? Maybe you don't even have to connect it. Someone who reads your name will see the connection. Or maybe you just play with the idea of these G's and the E's not being, you know, kind of having asymmetrical thicknesses in certain parts. Maybe this one is thicker here, and this one is thicker there. And even that mouth can have a kind of an asymmetrical. So this is really interesting. This is also very interesting. I really enjoyed this one as well. But for this one, you definitely should, you know, erase some unnecessary details. Like this one. It wants to flow, and it has the potential of flowing. Make sure that these circles are exactly the same. It seems like here you have changed some direction. I mean, if this one is kind of, it should be doing the same thing like that. So kind of following the same axis here and the same thickness there with the smaller curves as well. This can also be very interesting. So you have a few very interesting things. Like I said, I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed those, and I enjoyed that. Pick a single one again. Good luck. Elif. So Elif, it felt like you didn't really try enough. I mean, there's nothing here that I can really talk on. It's just this seems like first doodle that you did for yourself, not something that you did to show me. I don't know what happens, but hopefully you listen. Okay, you have a name that's E and an A. They have a lot of potential. It's just it hasn't been exploited here. So I think you have to work again. Good luck. So Ceren. Or were you using Emine? I forgot, sorry. I did check this out. These are all too complicated. They just are read as Calvin Klein or CK. So I'm not sure about them, but this object that you drew here is looking interesting. It has the feeling of a Superman logo, but not really that important. It's because it's maybe a bit getting longer. So what if you actually, would you be able to fit this into a perfect circle? And I think that you can. I mean, you will have a larger opening here. Again, like this one and this one. But of course, what really is required here is for the initial part to also fit perfectly, and you are, I'm sure, aware of it. So this is interesting. Now I would go and I think it would work much better if it's a perfect circle, or if right now your thing is larger on the top and kind of a thinner on the bottom. You can either make it really fit into a rounded rectangle. Again, that would also be nice to see. So you can round these parts, but it fits in a rectangle. So all the others, I'm not really seeing anything much interesting. But this one, I mean, okay, there's a nice thing here as well, but it needs to be worked on a lot. This is so much closer to finishing. So if I were you, I would move on with this one. Good luck. Evren, okay, so I like some of the kind of emblems, that marks that you have created. These are too detailed, I think, too unnecessary. But this is interesting. Flipped, it's also kind of interesting, but it makes Evren 3'er, so not 3'er, so that's the problem. But this one doesn't create it. But what about, so we start with this one and we produce alternatives. What if it's so rounded just like here? What if it's fully circular? Let me make this thing. What if it's like that, and then on top let's kind of erase certain parts. Oops, pardon, bir şey yapamadım. Okay. So what if you do this? So, but I'll look at the alternatives, okay? That's what you need right now, because I think that thing is interesting. So of course you can cut it up. I just started with a circle to make the left part kind of well fitting there. Is it going to be like this? Or is it going to be like this? Is it going to be, well, this could even work maybe. Not like you also showed, this could also work. Anyway, many options to try out with this one, and it's so much more interesting than any of what you have here. Here again is the same thing. You kind of flipping it around, but the moment you put something inside the U, I start to read it as other stuff. This is actually working really nicely as a negative too, although it's an M. So what if we kind of curve up these corners? Because everything is so curved, I feel like I should curve the outside as well. Oh, see, just a single curved outside even makes it more interesting. Okay, here, so I have seen these things like that before, but it actually works so much better when you have someone who has two E's in their name, so Evren, Edremt kind of a thing. But this is nice. When you change the angle, you kind of give me a sense of the U. Couldn't it also work like that? You have it somewhere? Not really that angle. So it could also be here, like this. I think this typeface, the logo type, is too thick next to it. I mean, this kind of a small thing wants something much smaller in it. I mean, it's just overall too big, too thick. Because this is thick, this doesn't have to be that thick. This is interesting. This is kind of not serious. It doesn't look like something that's very new, but it's interesting. Yeah, that's also interesting. So these are all good options. I'm not gonna talk on them. I'm not gonna talk on these either. I mean, this on its own is interesting, but because of the way it's created, kind of a pattern kind of thing, it has a lot, quite a Selçuklu kind of a Selçuklu kind of a feel to it. So unless you specifically enjoy such an idea, I wouldn't go with this. So I did indicate a few that I think have more potential. Don't please work on multiple things, just pick one and go on from there. Good luck. Ezgi Pamuksuz. So Ezgi, I checked, but you don't have too many things. I mean, you have a lot of drawing, but they don't really come anywhere. You are actually this was all like kind of continuation to arrive at this point, and you were, I think, more happy with it because you actually drew on it like larger and so on. So this has become maybe a bit too thick. You're right. This is much better. You can even find something in between. Anyway, I think so. One thing that kind of is disturbing is how separated these two parts are and how thick this thing is. I mean, I kind of want to see an X here in terms of distance, and I want to see an X here in terms of thickness as well. So if you can manage that, that would be so much better. So are you going to end it here, or are you going to flip it a bit more so that the circle actually fits with whatever it is here and it fits like that? Maybe you could do it. It would be so much easier to write underneath, because if it's flying up, the text won't fit. But if you are able to put them in a horizontal line, then it's so much easy to write Ezgi Pamuksuz here. Okay, so another thing to consider, just to consider, you of course don't have to, but what if when this thing comes, it's, for example, leaves a small, oops, maybe it's too much, small empty space here, to give me a sense that this kind of a thing goes underneath and then up. And then maybe we can even cut up a small peak like that. These things are there for your consideration. Good luck, Ezgi. Okay, Fatih. I don't think that we can read F, a K or anything there. So it's an arbitrary choice of an image that you place. That's what it feels like. The kind of 3D drawings that you do are interesting. So whether they're scary or not, the way you say, I don't know. But if you want to have something like that, that might be interesting, and we can figure out how you're going to write your name underneath. Does it have to end like that, or because it kind of gives the sign, could we cut it up here and write your name clearer? So things to consider. I'm not really sure about. So okay, actually this sketch has more potential than all those others, I think, because there's a kind of fabric kind of a thing to it or something else, and you can actually play with many colors. There's a kind of a similar idea used by a different emblem that I want to kind of show you. Maybe I'll show you when we have the class, but you might have different colors that are intersecting. I just wish that you didn't have to go down like that and then put a fully different angle. So what if you have this F like this? Maybe you have actually a bit of an angle with the F, and then a bit of an angle here, and then you actually go with the angle there. So could it be? I mean, could it be like parallel, so not really separate F and K, but more of a together thing? Maybe you can find something like this. Let's see what else. So I like how you have twisted this thing to separate them. That could work. You have to be very careful about distances and so on, though. So this needs to be solved digitally, but could be. I also liked, which one was it? Okay, these two. Okay, this is also good. I mean, I like how you play with the positive and negatives. Not this one, but one of these could work, and they might actually be interesting. So whether you want them fully curvy like that, or whether you want like more edgy endings, they would both work like you have it here. It's up to you. You can actually mix them up as well. I mean, this corner can be rounded along with this corner, while, who knows, maybe this corner is rounded. So this one also is very interesting. So I can see how you have progressed from these other ideas to this one, and this is very, I mean, ingenious, I think. You play with the emptinesses, but you play with two colors. So some interesting things going on there. I wish I could see them digitally, but here's the thing. By the way, if you are interested in this one and if you are going to play with this, you definitely again you have to make things much thicker. Okay, so this one also is going to get thick like that. These could be a bit thinner than these, but if you can make them thicker, it's always better. So interesting things happening all around, many ideas. You should be picking one right away and start working on that without losing time. Okay, good luck. So final two are final three. Egehan, which I couldn't open in Illustrator because the files were missing. So Egehan, I think this can have a potential. It's interesting, but it's not right now. It's just a perspective drawing. You have to turn this into an emblem. So what this means is that maybe you give a color to here. There's an empty space here. You give a different color there. So you have to work with the sense of the logo. This is also very interesting, and it fits your name. So I wonder if you can manage to put the shape. You can have certain curves. You don't have to have everything as straight edges. So this empty space is unnecessary. I want it to blend into the E. Maybe the E will go like that, or I don't know, somehow, but you have to fix it. But I really like the hand idea. It's looking really interesting. It's so much more interesting than these, and because so many Eges and I don't know, as people that start with E are using similar stuff. So you better keep with something that's full different. And I think this E and L thing is a great idea. Yeah, no need for them. So this visually isn't really interesting, but it needs to become an emblem, and this is also interesting. Good luck with them. Feyza, again, somehow I couldn't open it in Illustrator, so be careful about these things, please. I think you haven't worked enough, seems to me. So these two have a kind of an interesting thing, but they're very thin. So because I can't draw on them right now, I can't really show you, but this could have become so much thicker, so much thicker. So this already shows the thickness, and it has an interesting emblem quality to it. How about the logo types? What will be next to it? Anyway, good luck. Okay, there was, I think, someone else. Yeah, Berfu. Berfu, you again didn't save the PDF file as you should have. You did not. I mean, when I try to open it in Illustrator, it tells me that it doesn't have the fonts that you use. So you did not probably outline your text, or you did not choose the when exporting as PDF to not disable Illustrator editing capabilities. Don't use those type of logotypes, because what you're saying is that I'm striking out my name. It's like a mistake that I did. So don't do it. Don't show that it's a mistake. This is really interesting. I find this one very interesting. But you need to have not a C but a Ch. So I wonder if it could turn a final time, a third time, to make us feel that it's a Ch, and it will also kind of be like a repetition of the B coming and going whoop, whoop. Now, when you're using right away the kind of a typeface somewhere, so the shape of the B, but since you are making it your own, couldn't you have made this upper part a bit rounder so that it would come and curl instead of kind of going flat here? It would be so much more interesting and effective, I think, if you can make it your own. I think those are really unnecessary to talk of when next to these and next to, okay, that's next to that one. So here I can see you getting the idea of a heart, whether I think these ones, by the way, are working much better, but again, I need a dot there, I need an ending there to give me the che. Whether you want to indicate a heart shape is your choice. I can't really talk about it. I think it's a nice form after all, but again, this is too thin. Please add some thickness to it. Good luck. And that's about it for the first part, and I'll move on to the second part for the other students.